everyone, my name is Kaylee and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Okay everybody, so playlist is coming up soon. Literally in like 5 days, 6 days. My anxiety is like through the roof right now still. I'm just literally so nervous. But I got a keratin treatment on my hair and my hair does not feel dead anymore. So we love that. I don't really know if I have any other exciting news. I'm going to get a Brazilian wax today at 3 o'clock, so pray for me. But other than that, I do not think that I have any other updates for you guys. So we're just gonna go ahead and get into today's story time. I'm gonna bring you guys up close. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to do my quick usual little rundown before we get into today's story time. So for most of the video, I will be looking in this direction because my mirror's over here and I would like to see what I'm doing. I do tell these story times in a first person point of view. If you don't like that, then you can leave. And these story times are sent in by anonymous people. Okay, so story time about how my best friend was a murderer. Yeah. All right, let's just get started with this one. So a little background information. I was 17 years old and a junior whenever this all happened. And for most of my life, I grew up in a busy city, and there was a good side of the city and then there was a bad side of the city. Of course, I lived on the bad side of the city all the way up until I got into high school. My parents had always worked super hard to give me a good life and make sure that I got a good education. And whenever I was in 6th grade, my grandma passed away, and in her will, she left everything to my dad since he was her only child. But this was enough for my parents to build a house 20 minutes away from where we lived right now in a very expensive and private school district. Now, the house finally got finished whenever I was in 8th grade, but because my parents didn't want my transcripts to get screwed up if I went to a different school in the middle of the year, they decided that I was just going to finish out the year there and we would just keep living at the house that we lived at until school was over. So fast forward to the summertime, I finally was out of school and finally I got to see the new house. So pretty much they took me on a tour of the neighborhoods, we got to see the school, and then finally we went to my house. And can I just say, this was like one of the wealthiest neighborhoods I had ever been in my entire life. Every house had a luxury car in the driveway. Our school looked like a mansion, but not the one that I used to go to that looked like a prison on the outside. No. And you could definitely tell that this was more of a private community. Like, this wasn't just an add-on of the city. Like, you would have no reason to go to this little town unless you either went to school there, you lived there, or you had family there. So the streets were always clean. There was no garbage on the side of the roads or nothing. It was just very rich. Okay, that's how I put it. Now, don't get me wrong. We did not have the nicest house in the school district, but there were between 7 to 9 neighborhoods in the school district, and our house blended in with our neighborhood, you know? And by neighborhood, I pretty much just mean streets that had a cul-de-sac on the end and all the houses down and around the street. Anyways, it was fairly easy for me to make friends because my parents had got me involved in some activities before I even got out of my old school. But you could definitely tell right away that a lot of these kids were very stuck up and snobby just because their families had money. But they didn't try to act like that on purpose, if that makes sense. That's just the way that they grew up, because if you went to this school, you were considered to have money already, so they wouldn't really treat anyone in the school as that they were lower than them, because we all considered each other equals. But yeah, hopefully that makes sense. And even though my family now had a fuck ton of money, my parents still acted like we were broke. Like, we still never went out to eat. We still had a very low budget whenever we would go grocery shopping. So there was still barely any food in the house. So yeah, my parents were just cheapskates. But fast forward to whenever I turned 16. Now, even though I knew my parents were going to say no, I begged them for a car because you miss 99% of the shots that you don't take. But they did say no. But they made a deal with me. And I was very shook because I thought that they were just going to be like, no, buy your own self a fucking car. They said that if I got a job and I saved up my money, they would double it. So they pretty much said if I saved up $1,000, then I would end up having $2,000. If I saved up $3,000, then I would have $6,000, and so on. But I decided that I was gonna give my parents a run for their money, and my plan was to save up between $5,000 and $7,000 before school started, so hopefully I could show up to school in my brand new car. Now, of course, I was super annoyed that I had to get a job at first, like any teenager. But this one girl who I became friends with during the summertime, we're gonna call her Noor. She worked at the golf club in our town, and if you had a membership at this golf club, you were rich. You were considered rich. Like, there, nothing else. If you showed that you had a membership there, no questions asked. You got money, because a membership at this golf club was around $600,000 a year. Anyway, she pretty much told me that she was making bank there. Like, I'm talking on the weekdays, she would come home with at least $150 in her pocket for only working 4 hours. And on the weekend, she never came home with less than $400. But she also did say that the one downside was she had to flirt with old pervy men, and you pretty much had to babysit their wives. Like, she ended up telling me about this one time that she was working, and this PTA mom came up to her like a freaking nutcase, and she pretty much asked Noor if she could help her look for a Ziploc baggie that was filled with Coke because it had fell out of her purse. And whenever Noor couldn't find it, she said that she was too drunk to go and get more, and she couldn't let her husband find out that she was doing it because they only would do it on weekends. So she gave Noor money to go into the city, the bad part of the city, find a dealer, buy some drugs, and get back to the country club all within like 20 minutes. So Noor did exactly what she asked, and whenever she got back, the lady gave her $1,000, but later on that night, the woman ended up going to the hospital because she had an overdose, and Noor was freaking the fuck out because this woman was best friends with her mom. So Noor was like freaking the fuck out because she was like, oh shit, this woman's definitely gonna tell my mom. But this lady ended up texting Noor the next day, and she was like, hey, I know you probably heard what happened. Don't worry, your secret's safe with me as long as mine's safe with you. I think this lady had a few fucking screws loose in her head, because this was literally a 40-year-old woman that paid a child to go into a dangerous city, find a drug dealer, and you know what, actually, never mind. These people are just all really fucked up and willing to pay you a lot of money to deal with their bullshit. Anyways, so eventually she talked my friend Gia and I into getting a job with her, but it didn't take that much convincing because literally after we heard how much she made, we were all in. Pretty much. Now, Noor, Gia, and I were all like best friends before this, right? But not nearly as close as we became after we started working together. Eventually, we all started hanging out literally every day. Every freaking day. Like, if you invited one of us to go out, we were all going. We were like a fucking package deal. And since Gia's older sister was a manager at the club, we literally begged her to put us all on the same shift so that way we could work together. And she ended up putting us all on the same shifts, so period. But to be honest, there really wasn't that much for us to do at work. In fact, it was actually quite fun because we were literally getting paid to pretty much do nothing. But like I said, almost all the richest of the rich kids had memberships at this place, and the only kids that liked coming here were the ones who liked to play golf. But we were always having events that the parents would drag their kids to. So whenever the older kids would come to these events that their parents would drag them to, Gia, Noor, and I would usually just steal a bottle that we had laying around in the back for a while, and then we would all go down to the shed and smoke and drink until the event was over. So honestly, I had a pretty good summer, I'm not gonna lie. So at this point, school is almost over and summer is like thankfully here. So within the past 3 or 4 months, I have managed to save up around $5,000. And whenever I told my parents, they were literally fucking shocked. Literally. Like, they thought I stole the money at first, I'm not gonna lie. But they kept up their end of the deal. So on Saturday, we went to go look at cars. And Noor and her parents came with us because she had a similar deal in place with her parents. So we decided that we were gonna go look at cars together. Now, this was going to be Noor's third car. Yes. Since she turned 16. The first car that her parents bought her, brand new Mercedes. Like, I am talking custom made on the fucking website, shipped over here. Well, she ended up going up the wrong side of the highway and she caused a car pileup on the highway. She's lucky she survived because there was like nothing left of her cars when she showed me the pictures. And the second time, her parents decided that they weren't gonna buy her another car, but you know, since that was her first mess up, she could use her mom's Range Rover, which was definitely not a smart idea because I guess the one day Noor was driving home from work and she thought she hit an animal. So she wanted to check on it. Her heart was in the right place at the time, but no. Anyway, so she forgot to put the car in park. So when she got out of the car, it quite literally rolled off a fucking cliff. Yes. She's really lucky that there were no signs of like life at all on that drop down from the cliff. And those two incidents happened within the span of 2 months. And Noor had like a month or two before she turned 17, so she hasn't had a car for almost around a year. Okay guys, I clearly know that my foundation and everything doesn't match. I decided to use one of my old foundations that I haven't used in a while, and it backfired, so I know. Just don't say anything, please. So anyways, after all that happened, right, her parents made her put in a little bit of work for her next car, so hopefully she would be more careful with it. But they were so proud of her because she ended up saving up like $7,000. So when we all got to the dealership, they told her that she could keep the money and that they would pay for whatever car she wanted. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit jealous because, bruh, why is it always the people who just don't deserve the nice things that get the nice things? But I was happy for her, okay? I was happy for her. So while we were there, I decided on getting this Honda because 1, they're super good on gas. 2, I know it's a car that I can have for a while. And 3, it was the only car on the lot that was in my price range that did not look like a trap car. So yeah, and then Noor's parents bought her an almost brand new 2020 Beamer. BMW. It was literally so freaking nice. It had everything you could want or need in a freaking car. Well, the next day I drove us to work that day. So the next day she really wanted to drive Gia, her, and myself to work. So she pulls up in her brand new, really nice car, and as soon as she comes up the driveway, I see a small dent with a few scratches in the front of the car. So obviously I asked her what happened, and she was like, well, I was pulling into my garage, and since the guy at the dealership had told me that there were sensors on the front and back of the car and how it would automatically stop if I got too close to something, I didn't think that I would have to put it in park before I took my foot off the brake. But my dad said that we're gonna get it fixed tomorrow because it's not my fault that the guy didn't go more in depth about those features. It seemed like I was more annoyed for her about the whole situation, but I was like, whatever, it's not my car, she can do what she wants, it is what it is. But if that happened only 2 days after she got the fucking car, I was not sure if I wanted to be in the car with her while she was driving anymore. Well, fast forward, I definitely didn't feel comfortable being in the fucking car with her while she was driving. Like, some of the stuff that she did while she was driving, I don't even know how this girl got her freaking license at all. And trust me, I would tell her that this shit made me uncomfortable, but whenever I told her, she would be like, oh, you need to calm down. Like, it's not that serious. You're being paranoid. I've been in enough accidents to know what not to do. Like, how is that supposed to make me feel better? Because it doesn't. No, but seriously, she would drive with her knees while she used both of her hands to text. She would look in the mirror while driving, and I'm not talking about this mirror. No, I'm talking about the one that goes down in front of her. Or she would try to reach behind her in the back seat and look for shit while she was driving. The one time she was like, hey, can you hold the wheel real quick? And she's in the back seat for like 5 minutes. Like, this girl really acted like she had a self-driving Tesla. But even if she did have one of those, I still would not trust her in the driver's seat. Now, Gia, on the other hand, had her own car, and she's had her car for a while. But she knew how excited Noor was to be driving all of us everywhere for a while. And since Gia did drive us everywhere, she finally let Noor drive. But eventually she ended up snapping on Noor because the one day they were on the highway and Noor thought that this guy cut her off, so she was racing to catch up to him and she ended up doing like 130 on the fucking highway. Like, she was like, here are the 2 lanes, she was going off-roading and like freaking going around cars. It was ridiculous. And Gia had told me that whenever she told her to slow the fuck down, Noor looked at her and she was like, you need to stop being such a fucking baby. And then I guess Noor started screaming at her, so she finally slowed down and she was like, you need to live a little bit. She was like, you're so fucking boring, Gia. Like, what a nice friend. Well, Noor ended up going on a vacation with her family at the beginning of the summer. So Gia and I were hanging out for a while. And yes, we love Noor, but since she was gone, it was nice not having her around, mainly because of the driving thing. Because if we didn't let her drive, then it was this whole big thing where we were against her, this and that. And I'm sorry, but it is not comfortable driving in a car with somebody who clearly doesn't give a fuck about their life or yours. And I know you guys are probably thinking, well, why didn't you just tell her that she wasn't allowed to drive? Because if we told her that, she would be like, I'm not going then. It's always you two against me. I feel like I'm so left out. This, that, and the next, you know, just like victim shit, you know, because we can't ever admit that we're in the wrong. Anyway, so Noor gets back from vacation and she started acting really weird. Like, she stopped showing up for her shifts at work, and when she would show up, she wasn't scheduled at all. And whenever she would hang out with us, she would only hang out with us for like 20 minutes and then she would dip, or she would only want to hang out with us if we were having a sleepover, and then she would come over at like 9 o'clock and fall asleep like 5 minutes into the sleepover. Now, at first we thought that she was honestly just smoking a lot of weed, because while she was on vacation with her family, she couldn't smoke at all. Her family did not like her smoking weed, so we just thought that her tolerance was really low, because she also had been gone for like 3 weeks. And for someone who smoked every single day to just stop smoking for 3 weeks, it'll have that effect on you whenever you start smoking again. But after about a month, we had stopped making that excuse for her, because the one night we had all made dinner reservations for Gia's birthday at this really nice restaurant. And Gia and I get there, we get sat down, and I called Noor after about 20 minutes of sitting there, and I'm like, hey, where are you? And she's like, oh, I'm pulling into the parking lot now. Which we both knew was a fucking lie, because this was the excuse that she had been saying like the past few weeks. Whenever she would show up late, she would pretty much be like, hey, I'm there, and then come in like 30 minutes later. Anyway, she sounded super drunk or super tired when she was on the phone, but Gia and I waited about like 30 minutes, and then we went out to the parking lot to see what the fuck was going on. And we start walking around the parking lot looking for her car, when all of a sudden we see her car parked in the back of the parking lot with her high beams on and her music fucking blasting like so freaking loud. So we walk over to the car, we're banging on the window and we're trying to wake her up. Well, eventually she like jerked her head and hit the horn, and she finally woke up, thankfully. And she begged Gia and I not to call an ambulance, because at that point we really didn't know what to do. Because when I say we were banging on the windows, like literally I was hitting my phone off of the fucking window to wake her up. She said that it was just because she was super tired and she hadn't gotten a lot of sleep. She has been up since like 3 in the morning. We knew it was a fucking lie, but whatever. We knew something was up at this point. So the one day while we're all over at Noor's, we confront her about it, and she told us that her psychiatrist took her off her anxiety meds, and her mom started sharing some of hers with Noor. Now later on I did find out that her psychiatrist was most likely the one to blame for all of this, because whenever you're on psych meds, you should not just be taken off of them cold turkey. You have to be like weaned off of them, because if you just quit cold turkey, it's going to be a fucking spiraling down mess. So it's extremely dangerous to take somebody off their psych meds like that. So after that, Gia and I thought that we were just overreacting, because if her mom thought it was okay to give her those meds, then we shouldn't really have any input on it, you know? But we ended up having a way different outlook on it than we did whenever we confronted her, because every time that we saw her during the week, she looked like a fucking zombie. She was always super tired. You couldn't have full conversations with her, because one, she would either fall asleep during the conversation. Her attention span was like a fucking fish. Like, she was seriously just not okay. Well, eventually I was talking to my parents about it the one night at dinner. Well, my mom starts laughing and she's like, well, let's just hope that she didn't get into her mom's Xanny stash for her anxiety. And that's whenever I low-key started to connect the dots, you know? Like, these weren't just any anxiety meds that, you know, help with your anxiety but also keep you as a normal, sane person. No. These were ones that were going to ruin her life. Like, the worst part about all of this was the fact that it's not like she's stealing these pills. These are pills that her mother is giving her, not even caring about the side effects that it'll have on her. Like, I'm surprised her parents haven't noticed anything. So I called Gia and I had told her what my mom said, and we made a plan to have like almost a mini intervention for Noor. And we weren't gonna be mean about it, obviously, but we were definitely gonna put our foot down with her. Like, we're gonna let her know that we know she's been acting really fucking weird and we really care about her, so we just don't want her going down that path in life. So fast forward to the next day, we're all hanging out at my house, and Gia wasn't really good at these things, so I decided to lead the conversation. Pretty much the whole conversation. So I pretty much said to her, so we realized you've been acting way different for a while now. And the other day when we confronted you, you said that you were going to stop taking these anxiety meds. So we've been realizing that you haven't been yourself for a while now. The other day whenever we confronted you about it, you pretty much lied to our faces. You told us that your mom was giving you her regular anxiety meds and that you were pretty much going to stop taking them. And then we told her how these weren't just any anxiety meds. Like, these are ones that could literally ruin your life. Like, these are super fucking dangerous. Her response was, thank you guys so much. I'm definitely gonna stop taking them now. I didn't know these were so dangerous, blah, 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 blah. So, you know, we took her word for it though, and Gia and I kept a really close eye on her for the next few weeks. And she knew that we were like pretty much watching over her, so she kept telling us that she was fine. She felt so much better because she wasn't taking them anymore. She also bought Gia and I little gifts for being such great friends and being so supportive during this time. But here's the thing, we both knew that this was a bunch of bullshit, literally. We were fucking fed up with her bullshit, but Gia more than me, because whatever Noor told Gia, she would be like, okay, whatever you say. She would just believe her now. She wouldn't even fight back with her. Well, the one day we get a call from Noor's mom, and she's like, I don't want you guys hanging out with my daughter anymore. You guys are bad influences on her. And this is all because Noor told her mom that we were the ones stealing her anxiety meds. Apparently, Noor's mom had stopped giving them to her, and now her pills were going missing. And she was like, you're lucky I'm not going to tell your parents. And that's whenever I fucking cut her off. And I was like, okay, hold on a fucking minute. You literally gave your daughter Xanax, and you want to blame someone else for stealing your shit. Maybe you should look at your own daughter, and if you can't tell that she's acting different, then maybe you should get off the pill too. After that, she hung up the phone, and we told Noor about what she said. Well, I did, because Gia was like, I don't give a fuck, you tell her, I don't care anymore. Which I know she did, she was just hurting. So like I said, I told Noor about it, and she was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know why she would say that to you guys. So then we confronted her again. I confronted her again, and I was like, well, if we're not the ones stealing her fucking Xanax, then it's you. So you lied to us yet again. You're still on the shit whenever you told us you were going to get off of it. And she was like, so what, you're calling me a liar now? Whenever I said I was gonna stop taking them, I meant it. So she hung up the phone, and later that night, I get a call from Noor's mom again, saying that they found Noor unconscious in the shower, and the medic said that she had an overdose. Luckily, her parents found her in time, so she didn't die, but she was in a coma for like 3 days. So when Gia and I got to the hospital, Noor's mom came up to us and she like apologized for what she said. You know, accusing us of stealing her fucking pills. Yeah. Gia walked away from her because Gia was still fucking livid. Like, she didn't even want to see her at the hospital. And I just kind of stood there really awkwardly and I was like, it's okay. But I was also really pissed off still too. Well, whenever she got discharged from the hospital, she was sent to an inpatient rehab for 1 month. If you don't know what an inpatient rehab is, it's where you have to actually stay at the rehab. You can't just like go to meetings or whatever. And she would call us like once a week. And each time that we talked to her, she seemed a lot better than the last time. Well, fast forward after that month, she came home and it really felt like we had our old friend back, you know? She was full of life and just her fun, annoying old self. Well, while Noor was away, Gia had gotten a new boyfriend and he was a super popular senior who was known for throwing the best parties. Well, Gia told him about the fact that Noor just got back from rehab and he suggested that we have a small get-together for her coming back. And of course, Gia and I didn't think this was a good idea at all. Like, she just got back from rehab. This wasn't going to be like any regular party or anything. This was going to be a party where there were going to be drugs and other shit there. And it just felt like it was too early for us to put her in that position or her to put herself in that position. But then word got around to her and she was like, guys, I'm fine to go. Like, I'm not a full-blown addict anymore. I'll just say no if someone offers me anything. At this point, we were like, fine, okay, whatever you say. So Gia and I had planned to keep an eye on her all night, you know, which basically meant that we were going to be babysitters, which is not what I wanted to do with my night. But if she does good at this party, then we won't have to do this at the next one. So fast forward, the party dies down and we kept an eye on her for literally 3 hours straight. And she did a really good job. She wasn't drinking, she wasn't smoking. So I told her that I would get her an Uber home because Gia was the one who drove her and Gia planned on staying after with her boyfriend. But she said that we had already done so much for her that she could get herself an Uber home. So after she left, I stayed and I helped Gia and her boyfriend clean up. And then like a few hours later, I got a ride from Gia's boyfriend back to my house and then he was gonna drop Gia off at her house. Well, right before I'm about to fall asleep, Gia calls me because she said that whenever she went home, Noor's mom came running outside and she was like, have you seen Noor? Have you heard from her? So since Gia, Noor, and I all have each other on Life 360, I went and I looked at her location and it said that she was in the bad part of the city, aka where I used to live. Now, I was never allowed outside into my neighborhood because it was filled with drugs, gun violence, girls would go missing 24/7. So I hurry up and I call Noor's mom and I tell her that her dad needs to go and get her right now. I pretty much give her the rundown of why this is so urgent. And about an hour of waiting to hear back from everyone, I fell asleep and I woke up in the morning to a text message from Noor. And it said, hey, I really appreciate you trying to keep an eye on me, but some kid didn't have a ride home from the party. So I got an Uber and it made a stop at his house in the city. And then it was taking me back to my house. Now my parents are super pissed off. Obviously, I didn't believe her, so I asked who the kid was. And then I did end up feeling really bad because she was talking about this kid named Andrew. And he still lived down the street from where I used to live. And he would always have someone drive him home from these parties. So after that night, Gia and I felt like Noor had kind of proven herself to us. And she didn't need us breathing down her neck 24/7 anymore. Like, of course we were gonna watch out for her still, but there was no need for us to babysit her anymore. But as soon as we took that approach, she started acting up again, but even worse than the first time. She was still showing up for work, but whenever she was showing up for work, she was belligerently drunk. And Gia's sister would have to literally send her home, not even 5 minutes into her shift. And there were quite a few times where she refused to leave. So Gia's sister would have to call Noor's parents to come and get her. And eventually Gia's parents said that she wasn't allowed to hang out with her anymore, because the night that Noor was hanging out with a few people that we don't know, at 3 in the morning, the security cameras at Gia's house caught Noor and these people on camera taking her house, kicking over trash cans, ripping plants out of the ground, and just a whole bunch of fuck shit. Even vandalizing their cars. And they told Noor's parents that they had to pay for all of the damages if they didn't want them to call the police. And whenever I saw the tape, I didn't recognize anyone except for this one girl that I used to be friends with in my own school, but I stopped being friends with her because she eventually fell into drugs because both of her parents were addicts and her older siblings were all addicts also because their parents gave them drugs, and yeah. So this basically led to the conclusion again that Noor was on drugs again. So Gia and I both texted her this time and we were like, listen, if you don't get help before school starts, we're distancing ourselves from you. Like, we're not doing this shit anymore where we're there for you and then, you know, you say you'll get better and then you're not and you fucking lie to us straight to our faces. We're not doing it anymore. And then she starts saying that we're fucking selfish. We only care about ourselves. It's always been me and Gia, and she's always been the third wheel, and the only time that we stick around her is whenever she's doing good, but whenever she needs our help, then we disappear. Which I'm pretty sure you all can literally tell that that's not true at all. Like, Gia and I really just want the best for her. We want her to get better, but you know the saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. That's what we were dealing with. But 5 days later, she texted us saying that she had signed up for meetings at this outpatient rehab, meaning she didn't have to stay there, but she was gonna go to meetings, okay? And we told her, yeah, like, we're super proud of you, but that doesn't change where we stand right now. So after a couple of weeks went by and she was going to these meetings and her parents were drug testing her every week, and every week she was coming up clean, which we were super proud of her for. Like, not even weed was in her system. She also said that she felt really bad for how she was treating Gia and I. And she even apologized to Gia's parents and offered to take the trash out for the next 2 weeks and help with the garden, which was weird. That was a big step for her because Noor hated any physical labor type of work, okay? She would rather die than do any of that stuff. Well, fast forward to the end of summer, Noor wanted to throw some kind of back to school party, and she said that not being at parties has been good for her, but she would still like to prove to herself and everybody around her that she could still have fun and be sober at the same time. Now, of course, Gia and I didn't think this was a good idea once again, but Noor's mom begged us to throw her a back to school party. She said that she wanted her daughter to feel normal instead of like an outcast. And we tried to express our concerns to her because, you know, we were like, hey, like, we think this is way too soon after her recovery for her to be around any type of substances or drinks. And her mom said that she was just doing way better than she was before. So we were like, all right, fuck it, whatever, we'll do it. So we rented out this pavilion at this lake, okay? And it was the perfect place to throw a party. It had an area for us to have a bonfire. There were a bunch of table and chairs. So we added a few extra decorations. Then we got a bunch of coolers. We got a bunch of alcohol. And we got lots of trash bags because we couldn't have people fucking puking all over this place. And then we ordered 8 pizzas, all with Noor's mom's money. And before we knew it, 9 o'clock rolled around and almost everybody who went to our school was there. It was super fun. We had music going, we had the bonfire going, and we were lucky that this was low-key in the middle of nowhere, because usually with fires this big and music this loud, the cops would have came already and shut the shit down. Even Noor seemed to be having a really good time. She didn't have anything to drink, she didn't smoke anything. I was super proud of her. And at around 3 in the morning, almost everybody left, and Noor, Gia, and I all stayed back with a few other people to clean up. And it took us about an hour to clean everything up. So after that, we all said our goodbyes. And of course, since Gia and Noor lived right next to each other, Noor drove them both home. And they also took one other person. Well, at around 5 in the morning, I get a call from Noor's mom. And I could barely understand anything that she is saying because she is absolutely bawling her fucking eyes out. Like, I couldn't make out anything that she was saying at all. And then after 2 minutes, I'm like, dude, what's wrong? And then all I hear her say is, she's dead, I'm sorry, da 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 da. And I'm like, what the fuck? So at that moment, my heart dropped. I felt like I was going to throw up. So I told my parents I was going to the hospital. I raced over there. And when I go to the waiting room, there's a huge crowd of people in there. People are crying and screaming. It was very traumatizing, and I didn't know what to do, so I started crying. And then I walked up to Gia's sister, and before I could even ask her what happened, Gia's parents came storming into the waiting room, walked right up to Noor's parents, and started screaming at them. They were like, "This is all your fault. You killed our daughter. You have to live with that now." And that's when I realized Noor was still alive. It was Gia that her mom was talking about. At that point, I was in so much shock and disbelief. I ended up spending the rest of the night with Gia's family. And whenever Noor woke up, I had asked her about what happened. She said that they dropped Mike off and then he gave them all the rest of the alcohol that he had. And from Mike's house to their house, it was about a 20-minute drive. So Noor drank half of a bottle of tequila in like 10 minutes. And then she said she didn't remember what happened after that. And now I feel even worse than before, because if I'm imagining this, I'm just imagining Gia pleading with Noor to probably stop drinking or let me out of the fucking car. So fast forward a little bit, Gia's family ended up moving because they couldn't stand to see Noor's family lived a semi-perfect life. And eventually Noor got arrested on DUI, murder charge, and a few other charges, right? But listen to this. She only got 2 years in the county jail and then 3 years probation. That was another reason why Gia's parents decided to move. Her mom said that she did not want to see Noor ever again, and she feels like Gia didn't get justice. And also, it's the fact that Noor can get out in 2 years or even earlier because of good behavior, which she did. And as soon as she got out, she tried to get in contact with me, but I very respectfully told her that I no longer wanted to speak with her. I didn't want to have any type of friendship or relationship with her whatsoever. And then they found out about the prescription pills. Whenever they asked her why it was in her system, she told them that it was because her mom was giving them to her. So her mom got arrested, and then she got the charges dropped like 2 days later. The last thing that I heard about Noor was she was living in a sober living program, because apparently after everything that happened, she ended up relapsing. So if you guys get anything out of this story time, let it be this. 1, drugs most likely can or will ruin your life. And 2, it is never okay to drive under the influence. Okay, everybody, that is the end of today's story time. If you guys like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of me, maybe hit that subscribe button down below. And if you want to send in your anonymous story time, make sure to also click the link down below in the description. And if you want to keep up with me on any of my other social medias, they will all be linked down below in the description as well. But other than that, I will see you guys next Saturday with a new story time.